Excellent, thank you, Charlene. I'm just finishing the live stream, so that's starting right now. And as soon as that's ready, I'll proceed with the initial instructions. Thank you. That's ready. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to share that screen here. Let's see. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's Human Rights and Equity Commission meeting. For the members of the public who are joining us, you will be coming into the meeting, but you be on mute until there's a time for public participation. Then you'll have the opportunity to raise your hand, and we will call on your name based on the order that your hand raised are received. Also, we have available for this meeting, we have closed captioning available, and you should be able to access that closed captioning by following the instructions on the screen right now by clicking on closed caption and turning it on. Para nuestros miembros de la comunidad hispana que se unen a nosotros esta tarde, bienvenidos. Ustedes estarán con su micrófono apagado. Cuando sea el momento para ustedes de participar con algún testimonio público, usted podrá usar usted podrá levantar su mano en Zoom y su nombre será llamado en el orden en que las manos aparezcan. Muchas gracias y bienvenidos. También tenemos interpretación simultánea al español. Si usted sigue las instrucciones que están en este momento en su pantalla, podrá cambiar del idioma inglés al idioma español y tenemos intérpretes en vivo. Si usted nos está sintonizando en una tableta o en un teléfono móvil, estas son las instrucciones para usted en Zoom. We also have ASL interpretation live. And when we are in YouTube, we will be focusing that ASL interpretation as the main speaker, just so those members of the community who are joining us in YouTube and can take advantage of the ASL interpretation will be able to do so. And with that, that's the extent of my instructions. Welcome, everybody. Thank you.
Great. I just wanted to see if Councilor Perkins was able to join us, if she's on the line. Don't see her. Good afternoon. I am Shelley Smith, and I'm a senior management analyst here at the City of Bend, and I will help step in until Councilor Perkins can join us. So I just want to welcome all of you to the Human Rights and Equity Commission meeting. This is your second meeting, and I'm glad to see all of you on this call tonight or today. I think we'll start today with land acknowledgement and just take a moment to acknowledge where we are right now and go ahead and read this. We would like to acknowledge that the beautiful land known as Bend, Oregon, north to the Columbia River, is the original homelands of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. The Confederated Tribes ceded this land in the Treaty of 1855 while retaining regular and customary hunting, fishing, and gathering rights. The Wanalama, or Warm Springs, Wascow, and Northern Paiute people inhabited this area in certain seasonal times that clearly established their presence. It is also important to note that the Klamath Trail ran north through this region to the Great Cielo Falls trading grounds. This trade route expanded the impact of commerce between tribal nations. We acknowledge and thank the original stewards of this land. It is our hope that guests continue to honor and care for this land. Before we go farther, we would like to go ahead and have a roll call of the council commissioner members. So I'll go ahead and call your name. If you will please just let us know if you're present by either speaking or raising your hand. We'd appreciate that. Lamar Davis. Okay. Adrian De La Rosa.
Present.
Thank you. Olivia Dudo.
Present.
Elizabeth Johnson.
Present.
Okay. Melissa Camagna. Melissa, is Melissa on the phone? On the phone? Oh, there you are. Yes. Thank you. Mo Mitchell.
Hello.
Okay. I know. Thanks. Shireen Sadat Azadi. Shireen on the phone. I do not see Shireen, so if I am missing Shireen, please let me know. Sherry Tran.
Here.
Okay. Joseph Valdez. Okay. Don't see Joseph. Kay Vincent.
Here.
Jasmine Wilder.
Here.
And Isla Crosswhite.
It's Ayla, and I am here.
Thank you.
It's like Kayla with no K.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I can remember that.
Shelly, I'm here too. Jody's here.
Oh, Jody, I'm so sorry. You're not on. Well, okay. I apologize, Jody. Thank you. We will correct that. Great. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move into the next item on our agenda, which is approval of our minutes. And since this is a new commission and may not have gone through this process as a commission member yet, I just want to give you an overview of what we're going to be doing. So what I would ask of you is that you receive these meeting minutes, the draft. What I'd like to do is start by asking if there are any amendments or corrections to the draft that you reviewed. So once we do that, if there are corrections, we'll discuss those. If not, we'll move through the adoption process, which is a motion for approval, a second, and a vote. And today we'll be voting through a hand raise, so just a physical lifting of your hand so that we can see all of you. And if you're not on video, if you would please go ahead and voice your approval of the minutes. And then we'll go to opposed, and then we'll move to carry that motion. So just want to make sure we're all clear on this. I'm new to this as well, so thank you for your patience. I'm going to go ahead and ask that if there are any clarifications, corrections, or edits to the minutes that you would speak now. Okay. I'm not seeing any, so I would go ahead and ask for a motion from someone on the commission to move for the approval of the minutes, and then a second.
I'm happy to move. Go ahead.
Okay, Elizabeth, I think.
I second.
Okay. How about Elizabeth? Go ahead and you want to move?
Sure, I move to approve the minutes.
Jody, do you want to?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor of approval of the minutes, please raise your hand or say aye. Okay. Anyone opposed or have reason to not approve the minutes? Okay. So motion carried. Thank you. The next, actually, I think Councilor Perkins, did you just join us? Just want to make sure that we're including her as soon as she gets on. The next agenda item that we have is listed as member engagement. And what I'd like to share with all of you is just some feedback that we received after the first meeting of a desire for this team to really connect with one another, to be listening to the voices in our community, to have a more engaged conversation, and a focus on to create meaningful change. And so in order to do that, Councilor Perkins and I would like to recommend, and we have moved forward with this process, and I emailed this to all of you. We are excited to have Erica Mcalphan today with us to facilitate some of these really important conversations and topics. And Erica is uniquely qualified as the director of the OSU Cascades DEI lab. She brings with her
Did anyone else lose Shelley?
I think Shelley froze.
Okay.
I wonder, Erica, since do you mind just taking it from there?
Sure. I'm happy to introduce myself. As Shelley said, I'm Erica Mcalphan. I am a business faculty member as well as the director of the OSU Cascades Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Laboratory. And I'm so happy to be here with you all today. So first, congratulations on being selected to be a part of this very important commission. It is a huge role that you have agreed to take on. And when Shelley and Megan reached out to me, about community engagement concerns, I like to start at the very beginning. If you know me at all, my style is to start at the ground floor and then work my way up. So what we're going to talk about today, which will lead into the conversation about community engagement, is team building. You all are a brand new team. You've only met once officially, and you're going to have to establish those ground rules and principles of working together to accomplish goals. And I've seen the list of goals. It is quite long. And so you will, that will take some effort to work together in order to accomplish those. To let you know my style, please interrupt me. If you have questions, feel free to use the Zoom feature of raising your hand or just speak and interrupt me. That is totally fine with me, okay? And I'm very conversational, so I will ask you questions. I love participation. And, if you disagree with me, that's okay too, and we can talk about it. So let's just go ahead and dive in and get started as I share my screen with you all. So first, I asked everyone to prepare the reasons why you applied to be a member of the Human Rights and Equity Commission. My screen will pop up in just a moment. So first, that's what I'd like to do. The public, you all were selected, you weren't elected. And so the public doesn't really know you that well. So I would love for you to talk to us about your reason for wanting to join the Human Rights and Equity Commission, because it's gonna be so important for you all throughout this process to remember your why. Why did you sign up for this? Why did you decide to do this important work? So please, Jody, if you don't mind starting for me, just telling us why you applied to be a member of this very important commission.
Absolutely, thank you. I'm Jody Suffert. I am actually relatively new to the Central Oregon area. I came from South Florida, and also by way of Minneapolis, and I've always been actively involved in the community as it relates to at least LGBTQ opportunities and inclusion efforts. And so that has just been something that's been in my heart for a long time. And when I moved to Bend, I was actually nervous about moving to Bend because of my perceived and perception of lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when I discovered this opportunity, I went all in because I was really excited to be able to connect with other like-minded individuals. And the other thing that I'm excited about is to represent our largest employer in Central Oregon. I have 100 full support from St. Charles Health System, and they know I'm actively involved and can bring some thinking back to our employer that is so large here in the Central Oregon region. Thanks, Erica.
Thank you. Melissa.
Hi, everybody. My name's Melissa Camagna. My last name's kind of tricky. It's like, come on, yeah, just Camagna, very phonetic. I actually had to go back and look at my application and make sure that my Y is still my Y. And it is. I have been married 21 years to my husband. He is Black. He's from Africa. And we have 5 beautifully complected brown children. And our experiences have been very different in Bend. It's been overwhelmingly amazing. We lived here in Bend 10 years. But if you sit down with my husband and you sit down with me, we'll tell you our experience has been different. People don't assume what my family looks like when they see me. So I have an unfiltered experience. So through the years, my kids have grown up hearing us offered food stamps, unsolicited, because of what my family looks like, being offered welfare at the doctor's office, or physicians asking if I know the medical history of my children's birth parents. So there's a lot of assumptions that I interact with all the time, and they've grown up hearing that. And so that's my why, is if I can be a drop in the bucket and represent a different perspective and have any little tiny just morsel of forward motion, then kids that look like them, families that look like ours, might have a different experience. And so that's my why.
Okay, Elizabeth? Elizabeth?
Yeah, sorry, I was just getting to the mute button. Yeah, hey, thanks. I'm apologize up front about if you hear baby noises, sorry. So my why, I think, is fairly similar to what we've already heard. I am a Native American woman. I am a nurse. I am actually from the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, spent most of my adult life there. And I, similar to what Jody had said, there was a lot of preconceived ideas. Many people where I'm from feel that living in Bend would be this, very difficult struggle because of the lack of diversity and inclusion that is kind of perceived to be outside of Bend. So when I moved to Bend, I found it to be somewhat true. Mostly within like the education community, my children attending schools here. I think when I hear from Melissa speak is sort of some of those similar experiences of my children. They don't look like the other kids in their school. And now that we're getting into some of the curriculum and things surrounding Native American studies, I'm having to remind and reinforce for some of their educators and the teachers about things that I think should be, really easily identified as maybe appropriate or inappropriate, but since they don't have that much experience with it, they're kind of misguided at times. My other why comes from my professional career, my career as a nurse in Central Oregon. I worked within the Department of Corrections. I worked in emergency rooms, I worked in public health. So all of those intersect with groups of people who really don't have much of a voice. So I feel like I have enough experience working with lots of different types of groups of folks who, deserve to be heard and deserve to be included, that I hope to be able to offer some of that for those folks.
Thank you. Mo.
Hi, thanks, Erica. My name's Mo Mitchell, she, her. Why am I doing this? Lots of reasons, for sure. I'm a member of the queer community, and I've lived in a lot of small towns in my lifetime, and Bend being one of them, which feels like a small town, or at least it kind of used to. So just that personal lived experience of what it feels like to feel afraid where you live, and taking that lived experiencing it, bringing it here and wanting to be a voice for that community. And then also, I've been a mental health provider for a long time. And in my work, it's really evident to me that social justice work is trauma work. And, you know, we can't help communities and people heal if people aren't safe and don't have equity. And so that's a big motivator for me being here, is just my belief in that and understanding of that, and feeling really strongly about, I don't know, like talking about things, talking about the conflict and being in the conflict. I'm also really comfortable. I've worked in government systems before in community mental health. And so like the bureaucracy of government and meetings is something that I'm actually familiar with and used to. And it felt like I wanted to be back on a team to sort of create something again and help make our community a safer and healthier place for everyone. So that's some of the reasons why I'm here. I'm sure there's more, but I'm not going to keep talking.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Kay?
Thank you. Pretty similar to Mo, I'm also in the queer community and I'm in the midst of a transition, and I just realized that there's no one that looks like me. When I go to access services, I have to constantly educate and just kind of tell my story, and it's exhausting. So I just wanted to be a voice as someone who's transitioning and actively accessing services here in town, just bringing a light to that. I work with a lot of clients too that, you know, they're houseless, they're in the queer community, they're in recovery, and I just know how hard it is. So just trying to be a voice for them as well. And again, as a young professional just starting out in their career, it's hard. I can't afford to live here, even though I want to be here. Luckily, I have help. So just, yeah, that's one of the biggest whys for me, is just really pushing back on what's, you know, happening to our houseless community and helping out there.
Thank you. Lamar.
Hello, my name is Lamar Davis and my pronouns are he, him. And I am here today. One of my whys is I was born and raised in this town, grew up here, and I am mixed race. And I am also part of the queer community. And I am a huge advocate for equity, diversity, like promoting equity and diversity and inclusion for everyone. And most importantly, with the youth. At my school, I am the equity coordinator, and I am the first one this year. So I've really been like creating that position. And I've been speaking with the Social Justice Club at our school and the Diversity and Equity Club, and working with all students to just see how they want to be included and just like work on that aspect of the school and increase the welcoming. And joining this commission really like pushes that to the community and helping promote that in my town that I've been born and raised in. So that's one of my big whys.
Thank you. Olivia?
Yeah, hi, Olivia Dudo, she, they. Erica, thanks for being here. My major why is I feel called to build something new, build something different. I have this feeling in my stomach that this can't be it. Living in this white hegemonic patriarchy can't be it. We messed up along the way. And so I think this group, more than potentially any other group, especially now that we have the eye of the city, can build new systems that don't separate us, that don't inflict violence and abuse and trauma and fear against us, that don't stack us against each other for another dollar. And so I think it's sort of like a spiritual calling to be here.
Okay, thank you. Joseph.
Hi, my name is Joe Valdez. I did it because just like she said, it was a calling to me. I always look at myself and I say, I look at myself in the mirror and say, I want my kids to be able to look up to me and say, that's the way I want to be. So God, family, and country, that's why I'm doing this.
Thank you. People have shifted around on my screen. So Adrian?
Hello, my name is Adrian De La Rosa, and a lot of my whys align with what everyone pretty much have said here. The big one that came to mind for me is learning. Like some of you have mentioned, I've come from pretty small towns, lived in small towns, grew up in a very predominantly white community. So a lot of my values, a lot of what I know is from that. So me educating myself was huge. Learning more about what inclusion, what demographics are out there, what are the things that I don't know, and then really being vulnerable to learn those things. I think that was a big why for me. And the second one is knowing a lot of things can't happen by yourself. There's a lot of people out there that are powerful that can get these things done by themselves, but knowing that the city of Bend was creating this allegiance, and for us to be together to be able to do that was a big why for me. Knowing that together as a group, we can get a whole lot more done than one of us alone somewhere out there.
Thank you. Sherry.
So my whys are pretty much similar with everyone here. I think that's so awesome to be with a pretty powerful group right now. So many whys. One of them is hopefully helping the city see the importance of the community feeling like they belong here, so they can have a voice, and to really help the city reduce harm to all communities here, even the ones that can't afford to be here, the ones that that don't have homes. So there's just so many reasons, and I don't want to take up too much time because it's really similar to everybody else. But yeah, I'm just really hoping that we could really get some of the noise that's around us and make it into words, into actions.
Thank you. Jasmine.
So my why is I feel I have a lot of lived experience in this area, and like many others have mentioned, I feel that there are multivaried and equitable systems, from childcare to foster care. These are two things that are very important to me, to our education system, our affordable housing or our housing situation. I think that but also another element outside of inequitable systems is also just a sense of belonging that I feel is incredibly lacking from this community. I don't think that this community is prepared to understand like the true meaning of diversity. I think that there is a desire though, which is why I'm incredibly hopeful about this commission, about the new director coming in. But one of my huge whys is taking ownership, personal ownership here, and ownership that I don't feel was offered in the past and had to be, kind of taken. And then from this point, my goal is to help alter perception, for lack of a better word, the brand of Central Oregon or the city of Bend, that it does uphold culture, it does honor diverse voices. It is in fact working towards decreasing harm, inviting more people to the table, and embracing everybody, where there's a sense of belonging, no matter what language you speak, no matter what your lived experience, your background, your socioeconomic position, that there's not, to help basically attack and challenge hierarchical systems that you find in many cities, not just the city of Bend. But my why is to contribute to this place that I've really grown to love, and altering our strategic course. And the only way that happens is with a lot of planning. So this commission is about planning, it's about challenging, it's about questioning, it's about vetting the systems that uphold Bend, and then helping make sure we actually are on a track to go where we want to go with some time, effort, and hard work.
Thank you. Ayla.
Hello, everybody. My why is actually a little bit different. It is very culturally based. You'll notice up here, I put my little, I can't point because my background. I put my little Two-Spirit flag up there. Two-Spirit is a term that was created in the 90s by a group of different tribes who are like, we need to decolonize this word that people told us we were for a long time. And that word was a French word called verdache. So we decided on a new word, Two-Spirit. It means something different in every tribe. So like my idea of Two-Spirit as a Lakota person might be different than someone from a different tribe. But in my tribe, it means that I have an imperative to give back to my community. I must protect my elders and I must protect the youth in my community. And this is the way I do that in this town, away from my community, is how I guess my reason is kind of proactive. It's like, if anyone from my community wants to move here, I want it to be a safe place that is already prepared for them.
Thank you. Thank you. Did I miss anyone? Okay. So when we talk about community engagement, you just did it. You just shared your why with the members of the community that are watching today. And as a result of that, people will gravitate toward you if their why for wanting to be involved in this process is the same as yours or similar to yours. If they connect with you on identity or ethnicity. So you just engaged with the community. And as much as I wish I could say this wasn't true, you're out there now, and people are going to know who you are. They will recognize you, and it's sort of your responsibility, to engage with them and figure out ways to engage with the community, whether that be listening sessions or, connecting with the members of the community that you feel comfortable with. So to continue on with our discussion, many of you mentioned belongingness, and I'm going to attempt again to share my screen. And I won't worry with, I'll just make it bigger. So you mentioned belongingness, and if you notice here on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this is how team development and growth happens. It's what drives and motivates people. So it's critically important for all of you to remember your why. Many of you mentioned belongingness as a reason that you are here, whether it's belongingness for yourself or for others that are like you or for members of the community. Right? And in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there are members of our community that don't have their physiological or safety needs met. And some of you may be here, some of you mentioned the houseless community that we have here in Bend. That's being concerned about people that might have different needs from your own. Okay, so it's important for you to remember your why and then connect with each other on your why. So what are some success factors for you all that will help you succeed as a team? Of course, having adequate resources, and not just monetary resources, but time. This is going to take time. And I want you all to set realistic expectations for yourselves, and the public needs to have real expectations of you and what you will be able to accomplish, let's just say in your first year of being established as a commission. So the time that this will take, paying attention to community issues and community members, possibly in ways that you didn't before. How can you engage with the community members that you represent? And then remembering self-care. You have to take that time for yourself to stay energized and to stay motivated. You will also need leadership and structure. So the structure has really been set for you with this commission, but it will be important to fully understand the role of this commission in city government. You will have to communicate that frequently, because you've been selected to be here. Other members of the community have not. So if I see Melissa and I ask her, so tell me about the Human Rights and Equity Commission and its role in city government, she should be able to tell me right away. So that is something that you need to know, you need to understand, and really be able to have that memorized, because people in the community are gonna want to know, and they're gonna, ask for an explanation of what you do. And when we look at this graphic of team building, defining objectives is important. So you have a list of goals and strategies to accomplish those goals. It's important to manage, again, expectations of what you can truly accomplish. So set the goals that are important and work to achieve them. Evaluate the current output. So what's in the community currently that addresses the issues that this group wants to address as well? Are there opportunities to partner? Are there opportunities to collaborate? So think about the current output that's already here. And please acknowledge in your work those people that have been here before you, before this commission was formed, that have sort of paved the way for this type of progress in the city of Bend. And then design activities. Are there ways, I told you about engaging with the community through listening sessions and other activities. Design those. Get out in the community, go to events, make your presence known as much as it feels safe for you and as much as you have the time to do that. Identify individuals that can be of assistance, maybe in the community, or if you know that someone has a special skill set that's on this team. Identify those individuals and ask them to contribute in ways that they may not currently be contributing. Train the members of the team. And that's what we're doing today. We are giving an opportunity to talk about building this team into a strong, cohesive unit. And all of you have been engaged in some form of social justice work or advocacy work, but maybe there needs to be a cohesive training that binds this group together, that incorporates the values of the city. Should you challenge them if you don't agree with them? Of course, but it helps to understand them. So just train. There's not enough that you can know in being successful in this role. And then monitor team effort. Once you establish that trust amongst yourselves and know, everyone's communication style and the best way to talk to people, it's going to be important to make sure that everyone is engaged. This might be exciting right now because it's new, but what about 6 months down the road when it's hard, when you're tired? Will you still put the same amount of effort into it? You have to make sure that you stay motivated. That's why self-care is so important. You have to make sure that you stay motivated as well as keeping each other motivated. Then monitor your progress, evaluate team output. In about, 3 months, you all should be evaluating, what have we done? And if it's just, if we have defined our objectives, that's progress. If we know the first thing that we want to tackle, that's progress. If we want to know what community organizations, people, and groups that we want to partner with, that's progress. And all of that can be achieved in the first 3 months. So make sure that you evaluate team output to measure your success. That will also keep you energized and motivated. You also have to establish a climate of trust. Trust is incredibly important to work together. Anyone that's ever known me or worked with me knows how important trust is to me. If I can't trust you, I can't work with you. That's just how I am as a person. But trust is critical. So elements of trust are praising the good. When someone does something good or they say something you like, praise the good. Be sincere. People can tell when you're not. So always be sincere. Be transparent. The exercise that we just did when you told your why to the public, that's being transparent. You shared why you're here. You were being vulnerable, practicing openness, right? And not only that, but be consistent. Let people live what you just said as your why for being on this commission, and people will see that consistency. Not only the people on your team, but the people in the community will as well. Keep it real with each other. Tell the truth, be honest. Every idea isn't a great idea, but there are ways to encourage people to think deeper about their ideas, right? I'm not saying insult each other. Keep it real is not be mean. So please make sure you understand the difference. You can be honest, but there's a way to talk to one another respectfully. Don't take it personally. When I do these trainings in organizations, there's a video that I show where with Frasier, if you remember that TV show. And Frasier was sometimes angry and hostile for no reason. And you can't take that personally. We don't know what everyone is going through in the course of their day, what they're dealing with in their life. And maybe they're harsher one day than they are another day. You have to be able to keep it real, acknowledge someone, point out someone's wrong, be honest with them, and hopefully they can apologize and you can move on from the situation. You all are together for a long time. So a year is a long time, 2 years, 4 years, that's a long time. And if you take things personally and allow conflict to build, that can really be harmful to the success of the team. Remain competent. That's what I was talking about with staying motivated, checking in on each other. If someone drops off and is not here, check on them. See what's going on in their life. Maybe they need a little bit of help so that they can remain competent. Be reliable. Don't confuse trusting with liking. You may not like every aspect of a person's personality, and that's okay. You all didn't sign up to be best friends. You signed up to be on the Human Rights and Equity Commission. So the work can be done. You can trust that people will do a job without so much, liking every aspect of their personality. But I really hope that you do like each other. And then be fair. Things will come up, disagreements will happen. This group is large enough where people could take sides and it would just really hamper the growth and progress of this group. So please be fair. You might like more people, one person more than another person, but don't let that create bias, right? Where you're biased toward one individual and not another. So just remember to be fair in all situations. And along with fairness, be fair to the community too. They are forming their perceptions about this commission. They are making assumptions about things they may not have all the information to know. So just be open, be transparent, and be fair and understand the perspective that they may hold. Now, when we think about the development right now of the team, right now you all are in the forming stage. You all are getting acquainted with each other, establishing the ground rules, and members, are kind of strangers still. You all learned a bit more about each other today and why you're here. And then the storming process happens, where members start to communicate their feelings, but still view themselves as individuals rather than part of the team. They resist control by group leaders and show hostility. Storming is not always bad. Conflict is not always bad. It can be productive. So if conflict happens, try to talk through it and resolve it under that umbrella of trust instead of letting it fracture the team. As you go on, the team will reach the norming phase where people feel like they're a part of the team and less as individuals. They realize that they can achieve work if they accept other viewpoints. That's why engaging with each other and engaging with the public that you represent is so important. You'll be performing, you'll be designing activities and getting out into the community. You'll work in an open and trusting atmosphere where flexibility is the key and hierarchy is of little importance. And eventually, some of you will adjourn, all of you will eventually off the team, but it's important during that transition phase that roles are recognized and members' contributions are also recognized. Remember, I said, praise the good, right? Praise the good that people do. So what can impact your team? And macro and microaggressions. So we hear these terms quite a lot. And I just want to stop here because microaggressions, I live here in Bend as well. And I've certainly experienced my share of macro and microaggressions. So I would love for one of you to define for me, what's a macroaggression? And I know some of you know, so keep in mind, I'm a teacher, I will call on you. What's a macroaggression? Sherry, tell me.
I was just gonna say Olivia had her hand up, but.
Oh, I'm sorry. Olivia, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Oh, no worries. My interpretation of macroaggression is like a clear, overt act of like emotional, physical violence toward another person.
Yes. And believe it or not, most people, in order for most people, especially of the dominant culture, to believe that racism exists, they need to see overt acts. That's using racial slurs, that's some act of violence. It needs to be big in order for them to believe that racism or any other ism exists. What's a microaggression?
I can go.
Okay, go ahead, Kay.
It's the more like covert, the kind of sneaky, like backhanded things that are said that people don't really take as, like in your face, but deep down it's really rooted in that like aggressive nature.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The more sly comments, that people make. Melissa listed several microaggressions when she described incidents that her family has dealt with living here, being asked about food stamps or offered charity without anyone asking any questions to find out the true nature of the situation. So those are microaggressions. And when people deal with microaggressions all the time, it's like a paper cut. And I say death by 1,000 paper cuts. You have people that come to the community and they deal with those macro and microaggressions so often that it's no longer safe for them to be here, physically or psychologically safe for them to be here. So we want to work against, having macro and microaggressions, especially up here on the team. Okay, passive aggressive behavior can be a microaggression. If someone does something that you don't like, use your words, talk to them. Even if you need to wait and calm down before you talk to them, talk to them. This team is too important to allow miscommunication or a misunderstanding to fracture it. And then another thing that can impact team performance is personalities. Everybody's personality is different, right? As well as everyone's journey on the social justice road. Everyone's car might be at a different place on the road. And those that are way ahead can't get upset with those that are just getting in the car. there's a level of learning that has to occur for everyone. And hopefully all of you will come together and be in the same vehicle and move ahead together, okay? So personalities can impact a team. Professional responses to confrontation. So I can tell you, you will experience confrontation, whether it be from the public at large, whether it be in one of these meetings or amongst yourselves. You will have moments of confrontation. And it's always important to remember who you represent. When I am in the community, I represent myself, my children, and I represent OSU Cascades. And that is always front of mind for me, always. And it causes me to think twice before I react. I've been called racial slurs in public, and I've taken it on the chin because I know who I represent. Those are things, I'm not telling you how to respond to certain behaviors, but when there is confrontation, remember who you represent. Because I can tell you from hearing from all of you, if you have an emotional reaction and you get on the same level with someone else, you might feel bad about it later on. So just remember who you represent. Understand your roles. So just by a show of hands, you can just wave at me. How many of you understand your role on the commission? Okay. So there's some like kind of, sort of, maybe. I fully do. You know, I saw some strong hand raises and then some, you know. So there's work to do there with understanding your roles on the commission. Then leadership styles are different for everyone. Some people are servant leaders. Other people are take charge, get it done kind of people. I'm that kind of person. And so being that kind of person, I can lose patience with the person that is thoughtful and likes to think things through and talk things through. So we have to remember that everyone's style is different and we have to work together around those styles of leadership. And then the brand of the city of Bend. So Jasmine mentioned wanting to, you know, have an impact on the brand of the city of Bend. Jasmine, do you care to elaborate more on that? How you think the public perceives the city of Bend?
Yeah, sure. I think that from a branding perspective, you know, we're seen probably as like a touristy place. We're kind of like, I feel on the spot, but I feel like we are kind of treated like, or the city of Bend acts like a touristy spot where people pass through. So it's like a destination spot for people to come, and that's kind of like what we make money off of it. It's how we are perceived. And then somehow there's like all these people who are finding it to be this like really dream place to live and come to. And I think the reasons for why people come here, from the outdoors to the whatever, I don't know what else people are coming here for, but ultimately I think there's a massive mismatch. And for example, you want an example of a microaggression? I probably get asked maybe 15 times where I'm from in a week. So the assumption being that you must be from somewhere else because you don't belong here. So, you know, this is seen as a white space, an affluent space being overridden by white Californians. But the truth is with every move, more and more people BIPOC people, communities are coming here. I think it's seen as also progressive and forward thinking, and maybe there's the potential for that, but it's not really like true. It's not true. And so ultimately, I think we struggle with people not seeing this as a diverse place, encountering diversity in thoughts, mindsets, beliefs, religions, all of that kind of stuff is very, very narrow. And so when I say brand, it's the collective belief that you must come from somewhere else if you don't fall into these beliefs, into these into this type and the type is the brand. And that's, I don't know if that helped. So the type is the brand. And so that's the issue. So until we start to alter that perception, it's going to be really, really difficult to create community without, all of the, like, basically the tenets you're hitting here. Like, as a community, we're not going to be able to team build, grow, or have any type of collective feeling, shared belief about this place where everybody is contributing to that shared sense of belonging. So everybody's taking ownership in both our problems and our successes, because it feels like it belongs to only our problems and our successes belong to only one group, and everyone else has been shut out.
Okay, all right, thank you. So to describe, I have an example to kind of illustrate what you just described. When I arrived at OSU Cascades, there was a paragraph in our position descriptions that described the snow-capped mountains and the lakes and the trails. And that's great because all of that stuff is here. But what might that tell an applicant that's from the East Coast? What might that say? What message might that send?
It's an outdoor type of place.
Yep, it's outdoorsy. And I'm sorry, Mo, go ahead.
Really white, maybe.
Possibly.
Maybe.
I wouldn't say that at all.
Okay.
You got to look at what Bend and the inception of Bend was. It was a logging town when it first started. It was well known for outdoors, hunting, fishing, and there are a lot of tourists that come here from California because instead of going to Tahoe, they come to Bend. They go to Sun River. So it is a big tourist destination. But you also have a lot of people from Idaho coming down here to go hunting and fishing and enjoy the outdoors. Same thing with Washington folks that come down to Bend to enjoy the outdoors as well. People are just traveling and enjoying the scenery. They're just enjoying the different states and what each state has to offer.
Yep, some people are doing that, but people like me moved here for my job. I didn't know anything about I'm not outdoorsy, and that's okay too, right? And I brought that up to say, if you are an organization or a place that is saying we want to attract more diversity, you need to remove things that might detract someone, not attract people, to apply for positions or to move here. You don't have to like the outdoors to have a great life in Bend. So that's not the message that you want to send, to the public at large, right? It is a part of life here, and that's fine. That's great for the people that like that, but there's also life here for the people that don't. And to be as inclusive as possible, we don't want to limit or pigeonhole ourselves into one category, okay? Now, when we think about a brand, you all now being on this commission are representing that brand of the city of Bend. So if you don't like it, work on it, right? If you do, and there will be parts of it that you like and parts of it that you don't. But being a part of that brand also means that you operate within certain constraints. of city government. I work in higher ed, and we are a slow moving machine. It takes a while to get things done. Government can be the same way. So don't lose excitement if it takes a while. And make sure that when you do communicate with the public, make sure they understand too that change might be a little slower. It's not just flipping a switch and everything is going to be different tomorrow. And people need to understand that. And you all have your own personal brands. And they can be, each of you mentioned what you do in terms of your careers, what's important to you. All of that makes up your personal brand. And you want to protect that as well. Okay, so those are the things that can cause or impact team performance. Many of you too mentioned perception. What is the perception of Bend? What is the perception of this commission? And one thing that you have to understand is that people's perception, they develop that based on their own experience of a situation and the knowledge that they have about that situation, and they develop a perception. So the general public may not have all of the information that they need to truly understand this commission. Many of you said you don't understand, you may not understand your role completely on the commission. So that process may be slow, right? For people to really understand. But in the meantime, that's not going to stop people from wanting things from you. And when I say wanting things from you, they're going to want to see some action. They're going to want to see some change. So just be mindful that you won't be able to control perception, but you can control how you react to the perceptions. You won't always successfully be able to defeat every negative perception that comes your way. And then lastly, I just want to talk about working together. Going forward from today, my hope for the outcome of today is just for you to understand that you are one unit now. Yes, you might have differing opinions. You might see Bend in many different ways. You might experience Bend in many different ways. But on this Human Rights and Equity Commission, you are a unit. You have to trust each other. You have to work together. And you have to engage with the community. And then, knowing that, develop a strategy to do so together. No one person has success without this entire commission having success. Okay? Any questions for me? Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. I really appreciate you being with us. And I think this is hopefully part one of maybe a multi-part time with you with this commission. And so part of our agenda items today will be agenda setting for the future. So commission members, please be thinking about how we want to engage further, how you want to engage further with Erica. And we can talk a little bit about that later in the agenda. So just want to round back. Are there any kind of thoughts or comments before we move on to the next agenda item? I don't want to move too quickly away from this really important information. Olivia?
Not a very well-developed question just yet, but more of a lingering thought I've been having is, and this is probably for Erica or the group as a whole, but how do we like be okay with anger? Like I totally hear what you're saying about controlling reaction, focusing on action, sort of like focusing on the purpose. But I do think, especially from like a lot of communities in Bend, there is valid frustration, exhaustion, anger. Like, how do we not minimize that? And also, I feel like anger can be a really good tool to drive us forward. I feel like my anger is very productive at times. So how do we balance?
Necessary.
Yeah, like how do we balance the two without sort of like pacifying ourselves to just be nice?
Oh, please don't mistake me in saying that, you have to be nice because you're in Bend or, I've seen those bumper stickers. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying, anger can be productive. Anger can produce, it can motivate people, into action. We saw movement after the murder of George Floyd that I was surprised myself to see in Bend, and it can, so anger can produce movement. It can be motivating to some people. However, I'm talking about within this group, how anger might cause problems in the group and fracture the group. So when disagreements or conflict occurs, I'm just saying, try to have quick resolution so that the group can move forward. That's what I was referring to.
I guess I have a thought on that. Olivia, I was just thinking, like, as a group, I mean, culturally, the culture we create together is like, if we're experiencing anger, like taking accountability for it in a way, like to make sure our emotions don't like totally drive us, right? Like have them, but like also have accountability or create a culture within the group that just being like, I'm really angry right now and it's impacting me, and sort of creating a space where it's a both and, like, I'm angry, I'm going to take accountability for this, the state that I'm experiencing, and then also the both and of like also trying to stay online enough that it's still workable, like relationship still works and communication still works. Those are just some thoughts I had when you said that.
Mo, I was really glad you said that. I just wrote down, as you said, right as you said it was, process it productively. Like, I mean, who hasn't on here been angry before? I know I have, and probably will be again, but really processing it productively and with each other, I think is helpful. So I was really glad you said that, because I literally just wrote down process it productively. Yeah.
I wanted to add too that I think an important element would be almost validating it for each other, because sometimes when we express that we're angry, it feels so good to have somebody say, I would be angry in that situation too, or I understand you're having a lot of feelings, as opposed to, you shouldn't be mad about that. Why are you upset? I think that's an important piece too.
It's also critical to note that one person's experience may not be your experience, but it doesn't make their experience less valid because you haven't experienced it. I think that would be critical to note here.
I think one of the things that you have an opportunity to do as a team is to create some of those agreements around how you process productively. And so maybe one of the things I'd recommend is through your process of meeting, you create some of those meeting agreements to give some, kind of guardrails or some structure around what that could look like. So just a thought. Olivia, do you still, I just want to make sure your hand's still, I want to make sure.
Yeah, I do. I guess, and stop me if I'm talking too much. I guess I'm like trying to make these meetings more discussion based. So I'm just going to like toss stuff out there. I was one of those people that didn't raise my hand about knowing what my role is here. I think I understand the sort of boilerplate purpose statement that was included in the FY21 commitments. But I'm still, talk about guardrails, like I'm still not quite sure the like commitments, especially during these working times. And I'm wondering if anyone else feels that or has more clarity than I do.
I wonder if, our next presentation or next component of our agenda is Eric King, our city manager, is going to talk about how city government works. And I wonder if during that part of our agenda, or maybe right after, we could talk a little bit more about roles and how that fits into the structure. Not saying that it's purely defined by that structure, but it might help our next step of that conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, Shelley. So hopefully some of what I'm going to present will provide some context for that conversation, which is a really important one. So thank you, Olivia, for continuing to raise that.
Jasmine, do you have your hand up before we move on?
Yeah, so one of the things, and I'm like Olivia, I'm just gonna like throw my unformed thoughts out here. And one of the things I think that, I guess I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, I think one of the objectives we have right here with this part of the programming is we might be like missing it. So maybe we should like ram the conversation that direction. And ultimately, I think the reason why team dynamics and all of the excellent points people are bringing in are going to be incredibly important for the work that we're doing is because it's incredibly, one, it's this commission being an effective, transparent commission for whatever this role is so important for this trajectory of for the city of Bend. But also, when I said like the anger is necessary, I'm not really I wasn't actually speaking about us. I was speaking about like the community. Like, so there is anger and unrest, frustration, rightfully so, in the communities in Bend who very much feel that this commission should be an avenue for which that they can be included and heard and all of the things that we all said is our why, right? So one of the things we're going to be dealing with, and I feel like is a necessity, a messy necessity. I already personally have dealt with it. It has already caused me anger. I've already had to be transparent about my anger and frustration and communicate through it, see things from other people's perspective. But one of the roles that we have in this highly visible, limited resources space, that tiny little space that's been created for our community members, is to be advocates, and that's going to be really, really difficult. So I think that part of like, that's what we're trying to discuss here. Not only is it our team, which is a huge part of it, our ability to work together as a team, but it's our ability to hear input from the community that is often emotionally charged, angry, and incredibly necessary. And how is it that we are going to be able to stay as a team when one or two of us are attacked, or or two of us are having a piece of conflict? Like, how is there going to be unity from outside forces? How is our role so well defined, and how are we confident? Because I feel like we have to know our roles. It's so incredibly important that we know our roles, that we're able to communicate our roles, and then that we as individuals and a part of a unit are able to even defend what's happening. Like, if it's not, like, otherwise we're putting ourselves in a place of being really, really vulnerable to a community who really needs us, but we're not actually able to advocate for, and we can't even advocate for ourselves in any type of meaningful way. So I think that's like a part of what's happening here with this like community engagement, but I also feel like, in all honesty, we haven't quite hit it yet. Like, so maybe we need to drive the discussion that way or something, because I think we're a little bit swinging and missing, if I'm being totally honest.
I'm just going to respond to that really quick, Shelley. I like what she was just talking about, Jasmine, there. And I think Erica did a nice job of reminding us and asking us as a group to talk about our why, but that's an incomplete picture. we now have to talk about our how and what, and actually make commitments around that. Like, how do we want to work together? How will we process together when someone has been, and I'm just using these words, I'm not saying it's true, attacked or been angered or is experiencing something. So the why is just the first part. You now have to get into the what and the how. Otherwise, you're missing the full picture. Just a reaction as I was listening to Jasmine's response.
I totally agree, but I only had an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, but not a criticism, totally the right place to start is with why. And I think what Jasmine and group is bringing up is like, now we need to go into that next level.
And I totally agree. I totally agree.
So I guess in the same vein of all this, I guess I'm feeling sort of anticipatory because I want Eric to do his spiel and to get it done. No offense, Eric. Like, okay, tell us about the government, do the thing. We'll ask the questions, we'll get clarification. And then can we like get to the main course? Like, my sense is like people are ready to do the work and like we need to talk about culture, what our agreements are, like what, like all this stuff. And so I'm sort of like, okay, government bureaucracy, go get it over with, do your thing, next. Out of respectfully.
Well, and I'm happy
Love
to,
it.
if you want to keep the conversation going, I can always come back to. So I don't want to disrupt your conversation.
Sure. No, I mean, I think it's good to like get a quick 101 of like, how does this work? Because it's helpful to understand the system we're in. But my sense is that people are ready to also do the other work that sort of feels a little bit more like, okay, go.
I hear you.
And that just like lit me up. So thank you, Mo, Jasmine, Jody. Yeah, and I feel yeah, like let's get the house, city, government works out of the way, because my next thought is like participating in bureaucracy is a choice. And I think we should all decide how the city is going to run, whether it's in a PowerPoint deck or not. What parts of this bureaucracy are we going to participate in or not? I love that we already had like a little mini revolution in the reply all. I want that to scale essentially.
So what I'm hearing is that we have some next steps laid out for us for future meetings. And I just want to take note of this and say that the what, the how, the culture, the agreements, those are all high priorities for this group. Can I get some agreement that that is true?
So Eric, give it to us.
I'm gonna go quick. Go. All right. I'm gonna try to do this efficiently so that you can get on with the important work. And so all I'm really attempting to do is just give you a little bit of context. And as said earlier, we do have structure, but at the same time, I want you to challenge structure. It's don't feel like I'm not trying to share this information to somehow create or box anybody in. This is just a framework as a starting place. So, it's pretty high level. And so if you can go to the next slide. We have this visual to kind of blend in the city's core services and what we do. And what we do is defined by a charter. So a charter for local government is like our constitution, and the charter can only be changed by voters. It was created in 1911 in Bend, and it's been changed 5 times. Most recently, it was changed in 2018, so that the council runs a little differently. Now, voters elect a mayor directly, and the compensation for council has been removed from the charter, giving more opportunity for discretion of what that looks like. But what I'm going to do here is define kind of with a Mount Bachelor backdrop, and I'm sensitive to the talking about the overdoing it on outdoor. So here we are perpetuating this. So I'm really open to maybe other visuals that demonstrate this same kind of dynamic of how do we connect community values, which are represented in those clouds, and what I think we all care about is Bend is a growing city we want to shape it. And I think we have a huge opportunity because people want to be here and they want to, I think Mo, you captured it well, like, come on, let's get going. And how do you take these value sets and put it into action? But I want to just ground everybody in those services that we offer at the city, especially for folks that might be new to Bend. Looks a little different. Sometimes cities run parks and library and or even public health services. So we in Bend are pretty basic government services, kind of starting with some infrastructure that you need to have a city. And so we operate, maintain, build new roads, and all of the pathways and sidewalks, and for all users of our system. We also provide sewer, or what we like to call wastewater, or stormwater services too. All basically the water that's being used, where it goes. We have a treatment plant that's east of the city, and then water too. So we take our water from Bridge Creek, which flows into Tumalo. That's our primary source, our surface water, and then we also supplement in the summertime with well water in below ground. Layered on top of that is public safety, police and fire. We also run a municipal court that does not, so criminal cases are handled in the civil court. This is violations of code or municipal code or traffic violations that get handled there. Layered on top of that is what we kind of call governance. And that is the system whereby we ensure that our services are connected to the community. And that's done through representative government, through elected bodies, city council. I'll talk more about city council and how they're structured here in a moment. But we also have all the other services to make sure that we are operating within state law. So we have to adhere to, and you heard about this at your first meeting, public records, public meetings law, and other sort of parameters. We have accounting practices that we've got to adhere to, et cetera. Layered on top of that, land entitlement is a sort of a word that describes all of what we do to ensure that Bend is growing responsibly. So it starts with long-range planning. So Bend, as a city in Oregon, we're subject to Oregon law on how land is used. And Oregon has a unique land use system where there's a real value of preventing urban sprawl, of really containing development and not going into forest and farmland. So we have an urban growth boundary, and that process, it's a big process to decide how the city grows is a big piece of that. And that's done in conjunction with our population forecast. So we rely on Portland State University to tell us how many folks are moving to Bend based on historical patterns. And that population forecast then determines how much land we need for jobs and housing. Much to, I think, some folks' frustration, we cannot say, you know what, we're done growing. We're not going to allow any more folks to come to Bend. Bend does not have that system as a city in Oregon. There are some cities, folks often point to Boulder, Colorado. Colorado has a system where you can actually, the city actually says, we're only going to issue 500 building permits this year. That's not the system that we work in, and that would require a change in state law. Not only the land that we need, but then once land is, we have the land, that we zone it for jobs and housing and parks and schools. And then, as we're getting more into this realm of affordable housing, we have to really look closely to make sure that we're not creating barriers for how we are zoning our property, zoning land, so that we're being too restrictive. And so you've seen a lot of exclusionary practices over history, and really trying to undo a lot of that recently. And then once the environment is built with buildings, we inspect them to make sure that they are adhere to building codes for fire, life safety issues, and making sure that there's, public health and safety are kind of front and center with code enforcement, things like that. Layered on top of that is economic development, which really helps to set the course of how we are going to sustain ourselves as a community, the types of jobs that we're trying to attract. We also are unique in Bend in that for example, our affordable housing is also part of economic development. We feel really strongly about creating a sustainable Bend means we need to have a place that everybody can live. And we've got a lot of work to do. It's that, that pressure that we have as being a community that people want to be at. It's driving up those costs really quickly. So the clouds, and this is probably the more important piece than just those outline of core services, is what the community cares about is environmental social justice. How do we grow so that we aren't destroying our natural resources? We have a beautiful river that runs through town. We talked about the land acknowledgement and the native lands and respecting our native culture and making sure that we're growing, with the community in mind, not, it's not something being done. Also, I think one of the things that I've seen as a real excitement and opportunity for Bend is a much more of a focus around all voices being heard. And you'll see that really articulated in the council goals, which I'll talk about in a moment, that center equity in everything that we do. It's not something that's extra or a project. It is infused in the culture that we're trying to build. It's infused in the budget that we're trying to build to support those council goals I'll talk about here in a moment. Housing and homelessness strategies. We don't want to be a Bend that becomes an exclusive community, and that's a really hard thing to do. So we're doing what we can within the functions that we play in government in the city in terms of zoning and regulations and some funding to help reduce the cost of housing. But it is a big focus right now, and you'll see that in the council goals. We say business, so folks move to Bend. I think a lot of the concern that you hear is that, well, I moved to Bend, but am I going to be able to grow my career? Is this going to be a place where I'm stuck? We're not a part of a metro complex. We're not on a port or a freeway. And some of that isolation, is concerning from an economic perspective. So how do we ensure that we're growing a sustainable economy? And then heritage, this, this idea that Bend is changing. And when you moved here, whenever it was, it might not look the same. And there's a concern and fear for that change. And what does that mean and that sense of loss? And how do we preserve what is special about Bend? And that is something that it's different for everybody, and that's okay. It's just making sure that we don't lose sight of some of our history here, both good and bad, and learn and grow from it. So those clouds are not all inclusive of community values. I don't want that to be the point that we're trying to make here. It's just, it's an illustration of our job is to how do we attach those core services to the community values. So if you go to the next slide, the how we do that. Well, let me talk about the elected body first. So the council really is is our policymakers that helped to do that work, but they can't do it alone. They need help, and that's where the Human Rights and Equity Commission and I'll talk about some of our other boards and commissions come in. But just let me just share with you. So there's 7, these council members are elected at large. All that's articulated in that charter that I talked about. And they are elected for 4-year terms. And as I mentioned, the charter was changed, so the mayor is directly elected. And again, they're all citywide positions. So like the school district, library district, some of our other local government entities will elect their board members or as part of a ward or a geographic area. That's not the case in Bend. So you can see who is on council. We have 4 new council members that were just elected last fall. Councillor Broadman, Keebler, Schenkelberg, and Perkins. So if you go to the next slide. In addition to the council, they rely heavily on boards and commissions and committees, advisory committees, to help do their work. So this graphic, and you'll see this more that mustard color, are our permanent city boards and committees. So our Affordable Housing Committee, for example, has been around for I think it's over 15 years now. We have an affordable housing fund that a fee gets paid when permits are pulled, and that fee then is granted out to help support the development of affordable housing. That committee helps decide those projects, but also advocates policies to the city council to make more, just to have more opportunities for affordability. Our Economic Development Advisory Board, we have contracts with organizations like EDCO, Economic Development for Central Oregon, they're regional contracts, or a regional organization that helps to perform business recruitment and retention strategies, so that body helps to oversee that work. It also oversees our tourism fund, so the money that comes in with the visitors that pay taxes, that fund is part of the state law dictates how that fund is used, and that group provides oversight there. The budget committee, we just finished meeting. We do 2-year budget in the city. That group helps to walk through all of the city funds and make recommendations to council. Are recently created, so this was just before the Human Rights and Equity Commission was formed. They're not far behind the Environment and Climate Committee. The city of Bend just went through a pretty significant, about 2-year process to develop a community climate action plan, and that group oversees that plan. The Landmarks Commission is in charge of our historical resources. We've got some neighborhoods that are in a historic designation, so any development in those areas have to be reviewed. The Landmarks Commission and the Planning Commission are 2 bodies that are somewhat dictated by state law. All these other committees that I'll talk about, they're all in our city code, including the Human Rights and Equity Commission. So as we talked about at the first meeting, some of the basic role of the Human Rights and Equity Commission is included in the city code. It's broad. You'll see, like, I think 4 different categories, just as a reminder. There's work though for you all to do to help define your role. So it's not prescriptive. And that's the great thing about these boards and committees, is that they really allow a partnership or a co-creation kind of model, where we have council as our elected body that are setting the framework with council goals, which I'll talk about. And these boards and committees really fill in and help put those goals and strategies into action, and might also help shape it as well along the way. And then we have a neighborhood system that has neighborhood associations that are independent, but then we have a collection of our neighborhood leaders that come together. And that's also a fairly new committee. And then we kind of circle around the Human Rights and Equity Commission. We've also recently formed a transportation bond oversight. We have a voter approved $190 million transportation bond that group is overseeing. It's technically an ad hoc committee because that bond has a life of 10 years, but they're going to be meeting for quite some time. And we just had a group that was helping us put a more detailed plan together for some land that the city owns on the north end. It's an employment area, that Juniper Ridge Management Advisory Board. And then there's a couple of other city manager appointed committees that are more ad hoc. We'd have one that's specific around looking at our code to allow more options to house our neighbors for those that are houseless, and looking at every types of city code and how we can be more flexible. We also have a task force that we're just starting with the county to look at solutions for those experiencing homelessness, and an accessibility advisory committee that looks at the city's compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's been around for a while. So next slide. Okay, this is the more into the how. So we've kind of talked about the governance structure, then how do we put things into action? And it really centers around council goals. So our council is elected on every 2 years. So either 4 of the councilors or 3 are up every 2 years. And so what we do is align council goal setting to occur with those election cycles, so that council, they just ran a campaign, they've heard from the community, and they want to put into action what they've heard. And so that's really important to align with that, as they are the policymaking body. But as I said, that's a big body of work. And so they rely heavily on that landscape that I just painted with our boards and committees and commissions to help put that into action. So both in terms of receiving input on the front end before council is even goes into their goal setting retreat. And then once the goals are established, what we do is we put ourselves on a regular cadence every quarter, every 3 months. We invite boards and committees to talk with council about their progress and what the board or committee or commission is seeing on the ground, and make changes. Any good plan, strategic plan, is not something you just, you have to have it be fluid and respond to the times. But that plan, and we use this iceberg analogy because it represents what the community sees and the values that we're trying to connect with, using the council goals as a way to put that mechanism in place. And that once that plan is solidified, that really drives how the city operates from our citywide kind of strategic and more internal kind of direction down to specific departments, and then even all the way down to an individual employee. So we have a whole performance management system that what we call kind of creates a line of sight so that there is like a connection to our workforce, to what the council is trying to achieve. Go to the next slide. Oh, so sorry, I think I went to go back one. I just want to hang on that slide for a little bit. And I think what I would kind of now put in some more specifics with the Human Rights and Equity Commission. So we have council goals. It was attached to your packet. There's a framework that has 6 goal areas. And for some reason, that's the missing slide. I don't know, Juan, if that has equity at the center. That was, or Shelley, if you could just send that to, no, it has the 6 goal areas. If you don't mind sending that, I think it's a good visual.
Yeah, just a second, yeah.
Attached to your packet as well. It's more linear, where it just lists out our 6 focus areas that include housing and homelessness and transportation and environment and climate, accountability and justice, safety, health, safety, accountability and justice, effective government. And I might be missing one of the 6, but this graphic will share all of that. But equity is at the center. And I just want to point out a few specific goals and actions that I think will be of particular concern to the Human Rights and Equity Commission. So under accessible and effective city government, one of these 6 areas, there is a strategy around applying an equity lens across all city services, goals and strategies and budgets, a strategy around expanding outreach and public engagement with all community members so that everyone feels welcome and that their voice will be heard, a strategy that says increase efficiency and transparency of city operations through the use of technology, data, and long-term planning, increase the opportunity for the council and committees to effectively serve all the community. So stepping back, those boards and committees that I mentioned with the sort of pinwheel graphic, there are approximately a dozen or so boards and committees that's over 100 individuals in this community participate on. And so I think I would love to see the Human Rights and Equity Commission tell us how we can do a better job of ensuring representation. This is an area that the Allyship in Action report really highlighted, of using that governance structure as a great starting point to making sure that Bend's governance structure really does represent. And if it's not, where can we make some improvements in that sort of system, that framework that I just went through. In safety, so I'm just going to kind of, again, highlight some of the actions that are attached to that packet with the council goals. Under safety, health, accountability, and justice, there's a strategy around creating equitable community engagement around policing that promotes accountability and justice. There's a strategy around delivering city public safety services that align with broader community values, plans, and vision. Under shared prosperity, there's a statement around making sure that we equitably share in Bend's prosperity and that we optimize our planning and infrastructure improvements. And again, applying an equity lens for those investments. So making sure that our underserved communities are receiving proper investment in infrastructure. And then on housing, I would say this is a big, probably the largest focus of council right now. Investing in programs and partnerships that result in collaborative, concrete actions towards ending homelessness in Bend, align infrastructure investments to create buildable land for needed housing, pursue policy actions to increase the supply of housing as a platform for equity. So it just gives you a sampling of some of the language. There's a lot more detail to that. So just in terms of a timeline, the new council took office in January. They were sworn in. We went through this goal setting process, received all this input, started to develop this framework in February and March. March, they voted on it. That then set the tone for the development of the budget, which we just went through. And that budget, there was money allocated to those goals and actions at a high level. And right now we're developing all the detailed work plans, project plans that go along with that framework, and that will be presented to the budget for adoption in June. And so our fiscal year starts July 1st, and that's when the plan and these goals kick into gear, and they're for a 2-year period. So, just the timing, the Human Rights and Equity Commission kind of came in at the tail end. So for future goal setting, you'll be front and center and helping us, helping the council really going to be eyes and ears of what needs to be included in that goal setting process. We have a bit of a framework for you to use, but like a lot of other boards and committees, that's a starting point. So there's an opportunity for you to take that action plan, that goal framework and those strategies and actions, and start really deciding how you might want to prioritize that as a group. And if there's some specific things that you would like to see attached to that. So there is room to sort of navigate. But what we want to make sure is that we are sort of working as a team, working as a collective group, and that's where that council goal framework defines that a bit. And I don't know if you're able to get that graphic up. That just shows, again, that equity really is at the center. I just want to read the council preamble, which is important to sort of set the tone, which is, we believe Bend can be a city for everyone. We can all share in the prosperity and promise of this unique and beautiful place. We honor the people that came before us on these lands and acknowledge that the health of our community relies on the health of our environment. As stewards of the city, we are accountable to the people of Bend and are responsible for delivering excellent city services. We are committed to serving everyone equitably, creating a more connected community, and preserving Bend's spirit as we grow. We will strive to achieve equity and justice for everyone in Bend. So that's kind of where I'll stop and be happy to entertain questions on that, or provide other examples just to help you as a body think of this framework and how you might put further action and definition to it. Oh, there we go. There's the graphic.
Eric, I have a question for you. It's not so much about the framework that you highlighted. I know that you've worked as this city manager for a long time, correct?
Sorry, about 13 years.
Yeah, I call that a long time. That feels like a long time to have a job, the same job. I guess I'm just curious, like, given your experience and I'm also just aware of the time, we don't have a lot of time, but in your opinion or experience, like, what is the biggest barrier to implementing like equity policy within the city, like day to day in its functioning?
Oh boy, I don't know if I have a response to that. I think, there's systems, it's systematic, right? I mean, we all fight every day, fight against systems. And I don't know if I can sort of point to one thing. We're doing a lot of internal work. So we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility group that's comprised of about 35 individuals from across all of the departments. And they're also helping identify internally what those barriers are and how we can make improvements. And I can give you the high level kind of what they're finding. I would say the Allyship in Action report is a great resource too. And some of that deeper dive independent assessment.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was just curious because like knowing government and knowing systems, I was just curious if there was just a big takeaway that you've seen or experienced that you're like, these are the barriers.
Yeah, I would say maybe the challenge for us, frankly, in Bend is growth. Because we are growing so quickly, it's just getting the land and the infrastructure. And again, we don't get to control that. So much of the challenge of Bend has been our heads have been down trying to just, react to some of that growth. And I think, we need to get out of that and really step up and sort of look around and say, is this really benefiting everybody? So I think sometimes it's just a product of we're the fastest growing city on the West Coast. That's one of our biggest barriers that we just don't have a lot of control over. And I think it prevents us because moving quickly and reacting is not the kind of work that really builds strong, deep relationships with a growing and changing community. And we need
more equity. Yeah, usually. Okay, thanks. I'm just curious.
Jasmine has her hand raised as well.
Is it possible for us to go back to the slide that shows the flow chart with the iceberg?
Yeah,
that was helping me, sorry. Basically, I just wanted to clarify. I'm looking currently at the strategic plan that came from the council. So they have already taken input from all the commissions, committees, community partners. Is that correct? Like that's already happened and they've already put forward their 2-year plan?
Yes, so it's a framework plan. There's still details to be worked. So as you know, if you look at what was attached, there's still lots of detail to fill in, but that.
Sure. So, but just to clarify, like, so that part has this, because I found this actually incredibly helpful just for me to really understand like the flow here. And, but in other words though, like, because better late than never, but our commission is not contributing to the broad strokes plan that went into place with this new council. Yes, basically.
That's correct. But let me just point out one, like just as an example. So we also have council subcommittees, and we have the opportunity as part of the American Rescue Plan. Bend is receiving $14 million in funds. Half of it is being we just received a week ago, and half will receive another year later. There was a specific request to invite the Human Rights and Equity Commission to be part of that process to help us allocate funds. We have a framework with council goals, but there's all sorts of an opportunity for members of the Human Rights and Equity Commission to help us make some decisions about where to prioritize those funds on specific things. So that's just maybe an example.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And that makes sense. And like I said, like I feel like for me, I feel like I'm happy that we're here, and then we have the commission and we'll be a part of the planning process ongoing. My last question was just to understand like the committees, what's the turnover on these committees? Because one of my first just thoughts are as if this feeds in, and so not talking about what just happened now, but in the next go around, like, do we feel like we have proper representation on all the different committees, commissions, the 13 spaces as we went around? How is that being decided? Where are the appointees coming from? And is that, I know for me, I personally have contributed to the transportation oversight committee. So, and I know that that's a big concern for them. Do we see that same type of prioritizing in the other committees, in the other areas?
Yes, I think so. Just to step back for a moment, all those boards and committees are selected by the council. So it's the mayor with the consent of council. I think Councilor Perkins kind of mentioned that a little bit at the first meeting we had. And as you all were just part of that, there was an interview process. We had, we typically on average are getting 70, 80 applications for typically a dozen or so slots for each of those committees. There are 2 or 4 year terms initially, and then so that there's some staggeredness, so not everybody, the entire board or committee or commission, so all of a sudden we've got a whole new group, so we want to have some staggered. There typically is, there's a 2 term, so 8 years is about kind of the what we see in terms of participation, but life changes and people might want to leave the committee, and there's openings, and so there's typically always openings for those boards and committees. We have a central page that people can go and apply. As I said, the Allyship and Action Report, it had a whole specific chapter, and they looked at our boards and committees, so that would be a great starting point to look for some improvements. But what did I want to say? The term. And then each of the boards and committees also elects leadership too. So, and there might be some subcommittees that focus on some areas. So a lot of, especially new groups, it takes like a year to kind of put some structure in place, just to kind of condition the Human Rights and Equity Commission. All of the committees are just in that same place that this group is too, of like, what do we want to tackle? And we've got this council goal as a starting point, but there's some things that are important that we want to see. How do we meld those two together? And we're happy to give you like an example of one of the boards and committees that went through that process, just as like a peer learning, that could be something that we would do just to help you sort of think of how you can put this all together.
Thank you. I found this actually very, very helpful. Appreciate it.
Any further questions for Eric before we move on to our next agenda item, which is public comments?
And I'm sorry, I have to leave at a 6:30 appointment. So thank you to everybody. And I look forward to continuing to have conversation with you.
Thank you, Eric. So for our next section of the agenda, we actually have 2 agenda items left and we don't have a lot of time, but public comment is very important. And so we do have members of the public here to make comments. We have public comment that comes in from through email, through this opportunity, through live public comment. And you will be hearing this throughout your term on the commission. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Juan, who's going to help us. Each member of our community will raise their hand, and they have they have 2 minutes to share their comments. And then we'll move real quickly into agenda setting for our next meeting. But I've taken notes, and so I think I've captured some of the things that you've listed as being priorities for our next step. So with that, Juan, I will turn it over to you. And thank you for helping us, Juan, with this part of our program.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shirley. Again, good afternoon, everyone. Juan here, good afternoon, commissioners. We're in the public comment piece of the meeting. So at this moment, I'm going to direct to the attendees from the members of the community. And we have 2 members of the community with their hands up right now. First, we have Eric Berry. Eric, I'm going to go ahead and provide you the opportunity to unmute your microphone. Please proceed with your first name, last name, and your comment. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Eric Garrity. I live and work in Bend. I'm calling in. You'll probably hear a lot from me in the future. I just kind of wanted to relay some of the things. I've basically only been active in the community for about 6 months, even though I've lived here for 3 years. And in that time, I've seen a lot of injustices. So I just wanted to run through a lot of those and just kind of share my perspective. So in the past 6 months, I've come across homeless campers that have tried to report stalking and attempted assault to Bend PD, who were turned away and not allowed to report it. I've had community members who saw a black man with a fishing pole and reported as a deadly weapon to city staff and council members. I've had Bend PD refuse to take a police report from a homeless camper after a man sped his truck up towards the camper and forced them to dive out of the way. The Bend PD officers refused to take a statement and left the scene. And I've also met a newly sober man who was forced to leave Bend after receiving threats from Bend PD officers. We've also seen Bend PD lie to members of the public about whether they saw a white nationalist pull a gun and aim it at the crowd at Pilot Butte. And most recently, there was an article published by OPB about a specific Bend PD officer and his ties to extremist groups. And unfortunately, it wasn't until City Manager Eric King made a statement days later that any city official had made a statement on whether white supremacy had a role at Bend PD. There's a lot of good discussion tonight about like productive anger, and I assume everyone here kind of has a justice-oriented mindset. In that vein, I would just ask you to continue to keep that front of mind and not really make the mistake of being Bend nice or polite for anything approaching justice or equity, because the city has a really, really long way to go. Thank you. And thank you for volunteering to do this kind of work. This is really important stuff.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Mike Satcher. Mike, I'm providing you now the opportunity to unmute yourself. Please proceed, first name, last name, and your comment. Welcome.
Hello, good afternoon. I'll try to be quick. I have a lot to say. I'm calling in to raise awareness about an emergency situation in Bend that relates directly to this commission's mandate. Next week, the city of Bend is planning a complete sweep of a houseless camp off of 3rd Street. The plan is to remove the camp entirely. Eric King has already set the sweep in motion, but next Wednesday, the city council will be discussing it in private session. It's worth noting the public will have no opportunity to weigh in. There are a lot of reasons why this sweep should be brought to your attention. The first is obviously that houseless rights are human rights, but the residents of this camp are particularly vulnerable for a variety of reasons. This camp has the highest rates of residents with disabilities of any in Bend. It's also the most ethnically diverse camp with the most Black residents. I know that because I work there every week. As you may know, this camp has also been the particular target of harassment by Bend Police. Bend Police Corporal Josh Spano is currently under investigation for his possible ties to extremist groups. And then that investigation started because of his behavior at this camp that the city plans to sweep. For months, the city has denied that it will participate in camp sweeps, but now they're getting ready to remove an entire camp that is also the camp with the most ethnic diversity, the most disability, and that has been terrorized by a cop that's currently under investigation. It defies credulity to think that this is all some sort of coincidence. The residents of this camp are being retaliated against. The sweep is racist, it is ableist, and it is an act of retaliation by the city manager and Bend Police. It's also worth noting that the sweep likely puts the city in a legally precarious position under the recent Blake versus Grants Pass ruling, which found that forcing the houseless to move without providing them a safe alternative violates the Eighth Amendment prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. The city is going to claim that these residents can go to the new 65-bed warming shelter, but that facility only gives people a place to go at night. They'll be taking people's tents and the only home they know, and they're going to leave them with no shelter and no place to go during the day. I don't know what power, if any, this brave commission might have to stop this horrific and pointless action by the city, but I just urge each of you to go on record in opposition to it. Please contact counselors and ask them to oppose it in their private, their private and off the books discussion next Wednesday. Thank you for your time. Thank you for volunteering. You're the last line of defense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next we have Ashley. Ashley, I provided you the opportunity to unmute your microphone. Just a moment. All right, Ashley, now I've provided you the opportunity to unmute. First name, last name, and your comment, please proceed.
Hi, thank you. My name is Ashley Nisa, and I want to thank every member of this commission for the work that you volunteered to do. It is incredibly necessary. I don't have a well-composed comment for you guys tonight. I would just like to echo the sentiments of the two callers before me. I organize with one of the service providers that serves most of these camps in Bend. And what we're seeing from Bend PD and the inaction from City Council is cruel. It's inhumane, and we're putting people's lives on the lines. The camp that's due to be swept is by far the heaviest density of people of color, of people with disabilities, and they're some of our most vulnerable neighbors. We should be judged upon the way that we treat the most vulnerable in our society, and this isn't it. I don't know how much power you all have over what decisions get made from here on out, or whether this council was put together to shut the rest of us up. I have high hopes after hearing your passion and your compassion in your why you're here. And I urge you to go on record against these sweeps and to urge City Council against any more inhumane sweeps against the homeless camps. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next we have Kenny Adams. Kenny, I provided you the opportunity to unmute. Please proceed with your comment. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm going to be brief for anyone that knows me. Brevity is not usually my strong suit, but I think it'll be just short tonight. Heard a lot of things tonight with a lot of the discussions that both disheartened me, but also really made me quite proud of the work that you're going to be doing. The things that disheartened me was not anything that really came from pretty much most of the people that are on the HREC. But what I will say is Bend has a problem right now in regards to focusing on anger being a bad thing. And I know, Jasmine, you are the only African-American on the HREC right now. But right now, I've also noticed, especially over the last 7 to 10 months, that most of the time, whenever they say people are angry, it's normally geared at the Black community. It's normally geared at the marginalized communities and saying that it's such a problem. And frankly, that's colonizer talk, because the righteous anger that we have is exactly that. It is righteous. So I encourage each and every one of you, if you see something, if you hear something, if you know something that's going on in this town and it makes you very, very angry, use that anger. Use that righteous anger and actually do something to make a difference. And I know you all have the power to do it. And I appreciate every single one of you volunteering and go in and make that change. Do it. I encourage every single one of you. And if people tell you to, or try to tone you down and say, don't be angry about it, get angrier and use it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next, we have Bev Vasquez. Bev, I provided you the opportunity to unmute. Please proceed with your comment. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. Welcome, Human Rights and Equity Commission. I'm really grateful that you're now serving our city of Bend. And I'd like to echo a few of the comments that were mentioned before. I hope this body will look into some of the actions and inactions of our police department in town. Some of the allegations of connections with white supremacy really do warrant looking into for the safety of people of color in this town, as well as, you know, the the quality of our police department. And also calling in as a volunteer who works regularly with unhoused camps with the community shower truck. I'm very concerned about the sweep that's coming up in 2 weeks. People on Emerson actually didn't know until today that they were going to be moved. And apparently, you know, the city is going to tell them a week in advance and bring some service providers out to talk to them. But I would echo the fact that an overnight shelter does not replace a living structure. And without having a place for people to be during the day, you're taking away a lot of stability from folks. And this isn't you, but this is our city. So I'd urge you to go on the record and urge City Council not to take this action. From what I understand, the council has the power to decide whether or not this will go through. And as our Human Rights and Equity Commission, I'd urge you to look out for the human rights and equity of these vulnerable folks. Thank you so much. That's all I got.
Perfect, thank you. Next, we have Kirsten Arias. Kirsten, I've provided you the opportunity to unmute. Please proceed with your comment and welcome.
Hello. Hi, my name is Kirsten Arias. Sure, most of y'all know me. If you don't, well, I'm a person who loves this community. I love speaking up for my community and taking action and making change, being resources, all that fun jazz. Most importantly, I love to help my BIPOC community because I am a BIPOC and I am a marginalized. Therefore, to see something like this, to see, you know, that within the last year, us raising our voices and bringing awareness actually meant something to the fact that here we are. We created now a group, an organization, a committee that will be a voice for our people. And I know some of you on here, and I know your passion and where your heart is, and you know the things y'all want to see change. So I just highly encourage that we see that. You know, I know that it can be incredibly stressful because it might seem like all of us are just, all eyes are on y'all now. You know, anytime there might be an issue, it's just all going to be like, okay, what is the HREC doing? And I want you firstly to just know that I know for myself, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I know for myself, I am not expecting the world to change overnight, and I'm not looking directly at you. But what I am as a person of color and as a resident of Bend looking at is finally someone who's going to stand up and say, hey, this is a problem. Hey, this is an issue. I hope and I have so much faith that this committee pushes back. This committee speaks back. And this committee tells the people who have stayed silent, even to this day, even after the year that we marched and the year that we stood up and the year that we spoke and the year that we fought, that we now have somebody who's going to stand up and say, okay, well, we're saying it. We're calling it out. You need to speak on it. I know that this committee is not, in a position like the city council, but you will be our voice. When we can't be there, you will be. When we don't get to speak and we're silenced, you will be. So I highly, highly, highly encourage you to put that passion and put that love and that change that you have every time, every day. I'm a huge advocate for Black Lives Mattering. I'm a huge advocate for human rights. And I have watched this city turn a blind eye to it every time. Taking a picture and putting a hashtag up on their social medias isn't anything. It's not doing nothing. When there is an entire community of people here that are scared, that are fearing for their lives, and all the while they're fearing for their lives, while they're losing their jobs, while they're being discriminated against, while they're having to deal with, the cops that are here, the people who were voted in have stayed silent. The people who swore that they were going to be their voice have stayed silent. And we have bigger things to worry about. We have other things in life that we have to deal with. So I just hope that this committee doesn't do that. And I hope that we finally have somebody that is going to be our voice every single time. Thank you.
And just a reminder, the interpreters are booked till 6:30.
Yes. Thank you. So I want to respect your time, and I know that we've gone over our meeting time tonight. I want to just appreciate that you've been able to stay on, and our community members are, as you can tell, very passionate about sharing their views, and just wanted to make sure we were able to accomplish that. For agenda setting for our next meeting, I've taken some notes, and I will round back. We'll be creating an agenda, and I'll work with Councilor Perkins as well. She sends her regrets. She had a family emergency tonight and was not able to join us, but I have no doubt that she'll be watching this meeting in its entirety that's been videotaped. So before we close, I know I have two people have their hands raised. I just want to respect that you have your hands raised, and do you have something quickly that you want to share as we wrap up tonight?
I think we need to talk about how we support the people that decide to make public comment. I mean, I want to go on record and say I'm adamantly against a camp sweep. I'm adamantly against any white nationalism, especially that of a police force or people in power. And I think we should leave time at the end of public comment to be able to say, fuck no, we're against that stuff.
I would like to say, how do we get any info on an issue that we may have, like that were raised by the public? Number one, and I'd say I'd caution against jumping to conclusions until we know all the facts. And what teeth do we have if we do find that there's an issue that is raised, like by public comment or something that this commission is looking into? How do we stop it in the sense of bringing it to your attention or the city council's attention?
So this is Mary Winters, the city attorney, and I'm just going to weigh in. This is a really hard time at the end of the meeting, and I understand this is probably highly frustrating to you. I want to completely clarify that there are no secret proceedings. There is no intent on the behalf of council, the city manager, the city attorney to have anything done in secret. In fact, it was my advice to the city manager to bring this issue before council before any action was taken. So everything was delayed because of that advice. So next Wednesday at the council meeting, there will be a work session, which will have service providers in attendance whose staff, including Shelley, have been working with for months on this topic. There will also be council review and action of an administrative policy related to management of rights-of-way and campsites at rights-of-way. So that is your opportunity to watch, to listen, to talk at public comment. This is a council action at this point with the city manager as the road authority. And there has been a long time of, and Shelley can speak to it as well as me, but there has been a lot of outreach to service providers and work that has already been done with staff. But that will be the public opportunity with council and with the community to know what the plan is at one location on Emerson, but also just in general, what the city and what the criteria are for public safety and issues related to areas where there are a lot of campsites. And one of the reasons that we haven't done anything despite many, many, many complaints for various locations is there wasn't a place for people to go. And we were working really hard to get this shelter to open. There's also, if this is too complicated to explain this late, I would really encourage you to watch the city council meeting for more information.
I'd like to say something just in response to that. I guess my sense is like, I know we're out of time, but I would maybe just say if you can stay, and talk this through a little bit. A few things. If the service providers are being called in by the city council as members to advise and who have direct experience, providing all sorts of services to this folks in the camp, my sense is that as a commission here, we should have access to those service providers as well. And I want to hear from them and because they're the experts, being the ones who are doing the direct care. And my other thought is if next Wednesday during the work session, the council is talking about this, we need to be there or representatives from this committee need to be there because I don't want to, I also believe like we should understand what the system, what's happening here, but it's also, I'm also against like just getting rid of someone's home, like of course. And I just feel like it's a complex issue and the thing is happening where it's the end of the meeting, we can't talk about it. And it's that in its very nature is disempowering. So I know Shelley, often you're sort of put in the role of like, is Shelley still on? Shelley, are you still here? You are, hi. Like you're put in the role of like taking all this information and then synthesizing it and taking it back. And it's sort of like a giant game of telephone. But like, I really do feel like some of us need to be there next Wednesday in an official capacity. And I'd like to talk to the service providers as well, so that we can integrate all that information, including the information from the members of the community. Because absolutely, like I hear you, I see, well, I didn't see you, I hear you. And I want to know more. So how do we make that happen that we can create some space for us to be there? And Shelley, that's my question to you.
Yeah, so I would recommend that, as Mary said, the work session is just that. It's a work session, it's a discussion. And what we're going to likely do is to have the Homeless Leadership Coalition and the Deschutes County Homeless Outreach Program Manager there, as well as some of our lead agencies that are working to resource, provide outreach to all homeless encampments throughout the city. So we're really trying, I think, two parts. One, to have this discussion and work session, but also to do a better job as a city to post this information publicly on the website and get as much information out there on our process. So I want to acknowledge that we do have the work session next Wednesday. I'm happy to send the link to that meeting. I can definitely talk with city staff to figure out and council to figure out how the Human Rights and Equity Commission can have a voice in that process. So I guess an answer, I'm willing to move forward with what you're recommending to my role as staff.
I guess my other question is like, how do we slow the roll on this? Like, is the work session like, is there a decision made? Is there a plan in place, or is the work session to make a decision?
Oh, there's a plan in place, and I just really want to caution about not over-promising something that has been a lot of work to date. And processes lined up that
I'm not diminishing in any way the work that has gone into it. I'm sure there's been so much work that's happened, absolutely. But it's also speaking to like our commission is new and it kind of came in a little late in the game. And so we kind of have to hustle up to get to the table. And not in a way to dismantle work, but to understand the work and to understand the facts and to understand the system while really honoring the community's voice as well. So both and so I'm just curious if there's any way to just like take a breath and slow it down for just a moment to actually create more bureaucracy and slow it down just so that our commission can understand it. So that we can use our power and privilege to fully understand the issue to make sure our community is safe for everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Mo. I just really want to say how much I appreciate you speaking up and saying what you have. I also recognize that we are behind on time, but would really appreciate more information.
Yes, so I just, full disclosure, I'm new at facilitating, so I guess, can I just say that everything that you've said is noted, and I will do my best to communicate next steps on how this commission can play a role in the work session. So if I can commit to that, yeah. I hope that's
we generally have pretty limited time at work sessions, and I know that having the service providers has been to talk to council about the work they've been doing, and we need to talk to Eric more about just the timing. Our work sessions have got a relatively tight schedule and a limited time, so how we could. Part of, I think, the issue is there's so much background that we would be needing to get the Human Rights and Equity Commission up to speed on, and I'm not sure the work session is the right format for that. That's why I'm hesitating so much, that there's a lot of information that you would need to understand to be able to be part of decision making. So, well, I'm wondering, I mean, quickly thinking, is there another setting to meet with you all before Wednesday so that you can come in an informed way and be more effective? That's what I'm thinking quickly, like, you know, there isn't that much time between now and Wednesday, but there might be a way of, you know, first, just even knowing that the houselessness is an issue, you haven't done your goal setting yet to decide what are the things that you care about and want to engage in the community. That's kind of the first step. And it sounds like because of public comment, you're saying, yes, we want to engage in this. And
I think what we're saying is it's important for us to understand.
Yeah, and that's where I'm just wondering if a work session is the right time for you to understand, or if there's another way for us to be sure that you all have the information that you legitimately want, and how do we get that to you?
So Shelley, is there a way to, like, I know it would be last minute, to sort of invite the service providers, the experts in our community to kind of give us like maybe like someone can record a video or something? I don't know, like, is
it possible for there to be, okay, couple of things. I'm not going to re-say what everyone else says because I 100% agree and we don't need to do that. But like, as far as like strategies to move forward, is it possible, or do we have the ability to have a committee, subcommittees immediately? So like, we don't all need to go. A couple of people can go listen to service providers, and then we can, using Erica's point, work as a team to hear what those people who have done the legwork does. So we basically need like some sort of ability to vet with flexibility. And so maybe we don't go to the work session, whatever. We go talk to Eric on our own, let him explain his perspective and what he's saying and what his thoughts are. And then honestly, I feel like everybody knows this, and I feel like we need to like say this to the city, but like ultimately, I know that we're not always gonna give answers that everybody likes. So I don't like this idea that we're being ran by the community. I don't think that's accurate. We're listening to the community, and then we will many times be communicating to the community what needs to happen or what is happening so that there's transparency. And sometimes in transparency, sometimes like there's no easy answers. So I don't think that that's what we're suggesting, that we're like, we want to be there because we're going to, you know, have this power to transform or change or undo anything that's being done. But we are there to provide accountability. And I don't think we should be penalized as a commission when the city is late to put us all together and incorporate us at this time. So what can we do, legally speaking, to be able to go right now on something like this?
You mean to attend something or to know more about?
Yeah, so like, are we able to break off as two people? Like say Mo and Sherry decided they have the time, the bandwidth, and the ability to go meet with Eric, hear what he has to say, and like a side meeting, because we're saying work session's not great, or go see these community organizers who are the lead on this work, hear both sides of the thing. And maybe Mo and Sherry can't do anything about it, but they are able to communicate better and have provided that accountability to challenge future things, to bring up, you know, the point is we have to have eyes on it. And
yeah, no, that's a good suggestion. I'm cognizant of, we have Monday as a holiday, there's such a short amount of time, but that's a good idea to maybe have a couple commission members able, like maybe Shelley and I could pull together the relevant staff and service providers to kind of quickly talk to a few of you to bring you up to speed on here's the status of all the work we've been doing. Here's why we're doing it now. Here's what the plan is. And you can like it or not. I mean, and just know what's happening so that when you go to the work session, you've got more background on where we're at and aren't just feeling behind. That's a great idea, Jasmine. So maybe if there's a couple of you that want to be the commission members who want to work with city staff, and we'll try to figure out how to work that in.
Yeah, yes. So I think if we could have maybe three
of you. Yeah. You want to
it.
tell us who you are and we'll figure it out.
I'll volunteer.
So Jasmine, do you have other?
I can definitely volunteer, but I also know that we have the hiring thing, so I don't know when that goes. So that's all. So I can spread the love and, you know, trust other people to do it.
I'm curious, who has a did Kay, didn't you say you had a background in doing like work with houseless community, things like that?
Just like a residential setting, but I would like love to go.
Okay. Is that you volunteering?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. Perfect.
So I lost my screen. Who's volunteer? Are you catching this, Charlie?
Yeah, Kay and Jasmine, but I would recommend one more.
Adrian, did you raise your hand? Yeah, and Adrian, he raised.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So, Adrian, just
and then, but sorry, one more thing about skill set. Elizabeth, your name really stood out to me, not to volunteer anyone, but I think just hearing your career background, I thought, oh, okay, that's our big guns.
Thanks. I'm flattered. I'm happy to volunteer in this situation if it's needed, if you would like me to be part of, or I'm happy to step back and trust that you all can gather up the information, whichever works best for the group.
Well, how about if we have 4 of you and it's going to be people's schedules, and if it ends up being 2 or 3 because of everybody's busy schedules and the short time, then so be it, but we'll try our best. To fit in an hour or 2, maybe once or twice before. And then of course, everybody's welcome to come next Wednesday. It's going to be Zoom, so, but you're welcome to watch, but we will try as best we can with all of you to set up a few meetings.
And then I wonder.
Sorry, the inner facilitator is coming out in me. Sherry Tran's been trying to say something. Can we let Sherry speak?
Thanks, Jody. I was just going to say, so after this group of people gets the information, are they going to be able to share it with us? the only reason that the only thing that's triggering me is because we're comparing time, our time, the time that has been put into this to the lives of the houseless. So this is just like, does it sit with me well? Because we're trying to rush and, you know, everyone has their time that they put in. But if, again, just like Mo said, if there's a way for us to take a breath so we can actually have more discussion about this, I think that's more valuable, because we're looking at, we're not looking at the impact of the actual people that it's impacting. We're looking at the impact of people's schedules and their holidays. And, you know, so this is, it's just not sitting with me well right now. So again, I'm just echoing what Mo said. Is there any way possible for us to take a pause just so we can, again, gather more information, discuss this a little bit more, maybe have the city actual council members or other representatives other than service members actually have a conversation with the houseless, like what are their actual needs, and actually have real conversations with the houseless, as opposed to having all these other people speaking on their behalf.
I think we have been having those, is my understanding, a lot. And I would just say that the timing isn't about not caring about the houseless. There has been a lot of resources and time put into this already. It's more about having all of the different staff that have, they're not here to talk to you. So I'm a little uncomfortable representing everything that has been done to a commission that wants to weigh in when all the people with a lot of information are not here, and to be saying, oh yeah, we can slow it down, when it is not my decision to make or Shelley's decision to make. And it had not been our understanding that the Human Rights and Equity Commission wanted to weigh in on this topic. So
I just want to
I'll
say,
leave it at that.
I hear that, Sherry. I appreciate your comment a lot. And I think it's going to be helpful, especially for the future, like as things show up, like to remember this moment. I think the plan of having 4 of y'all go, and maybe you can create some sort of document or provide us with information. And my hope would be, Sherry, that like absolutely what you're saying would be the norm. And I just appreciate that. So
yeah.
And I have to go. So good evening.
Yeah.
So on that note,
We just witnessed storming that Erica talked about earlier.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to structure. Like, how do we hear public comment? How do you hear public respond? And I think these are all very important conversations. So I have 4 names. I'm going to follow up with the 4 of you very soon. And I just, again, want to appreciate your time tonight. Thank you for staying over, and we'll talk more very soon. So I hope you all have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night. Bye, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Good night.